Alright you guys, in this episode I have a conversation with a singer-songwriter and a performing artist by the name of Jasper Erkens. He's got a new track out titled Your Words. It was a great time, it was a great conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed the talk. Here's Jasper Erkens.
So, my name is Jasper Erkens. I was born in Belgium. Currently living in Amsterdam. I moved to London to study at the Brit School when I was 17, and I lived there for about 5 years as well. And
what did you study there?
So I studied at the Brit School, which is a school for performing arts and technology. A very interesting place actually, with very interesting characters walking around, very talented musicians, artists all around and stuff. So it was a beautiful place to just, to learn the craft, I guess.
Very nice. So you were originally born in Belgium, you said?
Belgium, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At what age did you leave Belgium?
So I was 17 when I first left Belgium to study in London. So I was pretty young to get into it, I guess, to live by myself, to go and study abroad overseas. But it's the right age, I guess, as well, to be making a jump like that, to try out something new.
Absolutely. Now, were you raised a musician? Were you playing the guitar? Were you singing? At what age did you pick that up and start to make that move at 17 to say, we're going to go and pursue this?
Yeah, I think I was 11 when I first started playing guitar, and I was very, very lucky to not start straight away with music school, like classical guitar, reading notes, but I had a 70-year-old gypsy jazz teacher, guitar teacher, and he basically taught me guitar in a very intuitive way. So he didn't really tell me what were the notes or something, and if he let me improvise, he would just say just follow your ears or something. Don't worry about which patterns, which notes can be, which you can be sure will sound good. Just follow your ears. So he was a very intuitive teacher, and this was when I was 11, and I very quickly actually switched to acoustic guitar. I'm not sure why, but I just felt like it was just more real in a way, more sensitive in a way. So then I started playing a lot of jazz, blues straight away, all these kind of beautiful genres, flamenco, bossa nova, all these things he taught me straight away. And then he encouraged me to start writing songs as well. I think I wrote my first song when I was probably 13 or 14, something like that. And later on I did also some music school later on, but no, at first I was just basically intuitive. I still don't really know exactly what I'm doing, and I actually believe that it's counterproductive to know too well what you're doing. When it comes to music, it's all about feeling anyways. It's all about what feels right, and it's inexplicable. You cannot really explain to someone why. That's the whole thing. So he set me up for a very creative path, not to be like a performer of other people's work, but to create my own music. He almost kind of sent me off on that trajectory.
A lot of people begin to lose the emotion and the soul behind the sound once they begin to really analyze that the theory behind it are too much. They sort of get that paralyzation, and what started them making sounds and melodies that sounded great, when they tried to get better with that and focus more on the theory, it's almost like that other stuff starts to dissipate while this other stuff gets a lot more focus than it might need. We have to remember that music comes within.
Exactly. Did you say analysis paralysis? Or was that really? Yeah, I like it. It's a nice term. It's very true what you say. I mean, not everything should be an option. I think that's like handicaps are very valuable for creating. Setting boundaries is makes it easier to make decisions, whether they're good decisions or not. The challenge is to make a decision. Sometimes you end up not making a decision, not doing it because it's too difficult to choose. It should be easy to choose.
Right, and indecision is always worse than the wrong decision.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. In Belgium, they have a saying that you miss every shot that you don't take. And in that sense, you got to be able to make decisions. You got to be able to bang it out when it's about writing a song. You got to be able to follow the momentum and try to see the song through as long as the momentum lasts, as long as the energy and the intention towards that song is still there. You got to try and,
How do you, when you encounter moments when you have to keep the song going and keep developing it, and you come across these walls that we obviously come across, are you able to instantly create that emotion again and just keep it going? Because the job of a musician, especially when you're trying to really put out some great work, you have to be able to pick up where you left off, even when there's those walls.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you're playing live, you have to just go back into that moment, channel that moment as good as possible. Try and keep thinking about what do these lyrics really mean. Try and to convey that or something like that. But when you're writing, I guess you also have to do that when you're writing. I think there is a part that just kind of happens very naturally, very easy. That it just exists before you know it, or it already exists before you discover it. It's almost like that, but there's always a factor of work that has to go into it. Otherwise, it doesn't really get done. It's very rarely that you really that it's all 100% fun until the song is done. It's not really like that. Like there's always bits where you have to push yourself, just because after a while that you just have to do it. You have to do it because, yeah, like you say, like a month later, the intention may be gone, the momentum may be gone, and then it's like 10 times more difficult to get yourself to actually
rebuilding the momentum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we get a little bit of afraid of looking at it, but when you don't look at it and you kind of let it. With the thing with music and with arts, there's a different method to all of it, but sometimes that distance is good. I've met people who have taken years off of their tracks. They come back to it. It's one of the best things they've ever written. So it's just such an interesting and interesting process, and I have a lot of respect for it. But there's a lot to say about being able to keep that momentum going and allowing that track to come into fruition.
Yeah, but it's a good point as well that sometimes you come back to a song years later, and all of a sudden then you've acquired the right knowledge to finish it properly. So sometimes it's good to leave something hanging. So again, you can follow your feeling. If it's really too difficult to finish this creative venture, then maybe it doesn't want to be finished yet. That's also fine. But my point is that I think you've got to realize that there is a work ethic behind all these things. Every artist that has a great output, they have a work ethic. There's no other way. Like, unless you're an artist that writes 1 or 2 songs a year, then it might just be something that just jumps at you in the shower, and then you're a slave to it until it's finished or something like that. And but if you really want to write on a weekly basis or something, you've got to have some work ethic surrounding it one way or the other. Yeah,
absolutely. And once you begin to enjoy that process of, like you said, being in the shower, you get an inspiration, you write it down, you pursue that, and you instill that discipline that you soon have to create as a musician. Talent can go very far, but it doesn't go far enough, especially today with the amount of artillery this is and the caliber of musicians that we are producing. There's YouTube, there's a lot of tutorials. So at this point, it's almost like if you can be the best guitar player, but that's not going to be what sells all the records. You can be the best guitar player just on YouTube. So it's getting harder. So you have to pursue that emotional thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, very true. I mean, the treasure trove that we have at our fingertips, literally, is unprecedented in human history. I would even say, even if you would have worked in the library of Alexandria, right, in ancient times, you still wouldn't have had this much information at your fingertips like we have with the internet.
Right.
So on the other hand, there is no more no more excuses to, I guess, not educate yourself. But at the same time, that comes along with perhaps also some anxiety of the feeling that you can constantly work on it. So when do you take a break? When do you cut off from the internet? When, because like I said from the start, you can keep going to tutorials to become a better musician, but you don't need to be knowledgeable to write. That again, it can work the opposite way. So not knowing can make it easier to make choices. So it's just once in a while,
Absolutely.
I think you go down the rabbit hole of tutorials, but there's also a moment where you really consciously shouldn't do it when it doesn't feel right. You know? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you're hitting a really good point there, Jasper. I think you really are. We're getting somewhere there because that's the truth, man. That's the truth. You have to be able to interact with the world at a certain point. And a lot of times with those tutorials, we find ourselves sort of caved in these little areas and where the music's getting written, but nobody's really listening to it because it's not being put out and you're just always learning. And at a certain point, you have to make that leap, start making the music, interacting with that entire universe that is to be offered. And
Exactly. And obviously we have found value from other people's tutorials, other people's output. So at one point, it's our time to give it back. You know, nobody said it's easy to jump on a stage and be seen, and you know, like people can form an opinion of you. You almost give them like a free ticket to form their opinion of you. So you got to be somewhat strong and well thought of what you're doing before you get on that stage. And the virtual stage is the internet nowadays. What you're doing with this podcast, you know, it's a service as well. It's a service to other creatives, and everybody's motivating each other. It's a very beautiful thing. Like the internet is a very ugly, but also a very, very beautiful thing. But it can also be pretty ugly. It's just, that's what makes it real, right? It's like day and night at the same time.
how do you feel about a lot of these amazing musicians putting out their tutorials, essentially their craft, for free on YouTube for other people to learn just to try to survive? Isn't that a little bit interesting that a lot of those musicians could have put it all together and made a great album and it sort of just didn't work out, and then we see it in a YouTube tutorial for free, and it's just crazy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but it's also beautiful. It's like somebody doing something for free for you, you know? Like, I mean, it happens sometimes, and sometimes you wonder, why does somebody do that? And I mean, like total strangers on the street, that sometimes somebody does something to you, you don't even exchange digits or contact numbers, and you just say bye, and that's it. You know, why does somebody do that? I think it's just, it's deeper than we understand consciously. It's like subconsciously we understand that community network, and just like karma, I guess, like just all these kind of things that we
It's
probably
all
like
intertwined.
yeah, I think so. So if you want to receive it from the world, you gotta like give it first, and that there's no distinction whether you give it to someone that you know and love or to a total stranger. Like perhaps there's no line between those two. It's just about giving and receiving on a self-centered level, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it's like they say, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're treating one person one way, you might treat the next guy another, unless you think he has something to offer you, or maybe he'll give me a job, or things of this nature. But it's all fabricated, and I think at the end of the day, you have to start with the truth and lead with the truth, and you end up in better places anyways. Even as a musician, a lot of people go through these identity crises where they try to play characters, play roles, go with different names, and they always return sort of where it started. But all of that other stuff made it a little bit more confusing and important. I think the more you stay true to it up.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess I've also released music before under a different name. Like I have this electronic project that I did a few years ago called Altrigo, and it was like liberating also to. It was less personal almost in a weird way, you know. So I understand that sometimes people don't want to go out there with their real name or something like that. They want to. They only feel comfortable doing it with a band of brothers, you know, where everyone is just believing in the same thing, you know. It's just whatever floats your boat, really. It really depends on your personal character, which was all shaped whilst you were a child or even an infant or something. So I think that, yeah, it just that's what makes it so beautiful, is that everyone's doing it in a different way.
Absolutely. Where is your guitar teacher today? That 70-year-old gypsy teacher. Do you know where he is today?
Yeah, unfortunately, he passed away. I think about like 6 years ago, and it was a bit peculiar because I received a message from his son saying, "I regret to inform you that Jean aan de Kerk is his name, which basically translates Jan from the church. That's the way you translate his name. That he passed away, and it was actually on my birthday. So I told him, I was like, oh wow, he passed away on my birthday. And then his son said, like, well, that's crazy because it's also my birthday. So he passed away on both our birthdays. So I was just kind of like,
wow.
Yeah, it was just a massive coincidence, I guess, if you can call it that. I don't know. But he played such a massive part of my life that actually, hold on just a second. I literally, like, I guess it's for encouragement or something, but I have his death thing here. This was him. This was in the newspaper when he passed away. This is him. And you see, he's got this gypsy jazz guitar with the long hole.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's clear that this man had a big impact in your life, and you had a lot of respect for him, and I'm sure, he gave a lot to the world. Look at you, you are one of his students, and what more can you want to do than to put out valuable information and to carry on the next generations, musicians like you. The reason I reached out to you is because I know that authenticity comes from within, and we need a little bit more of that versus the mechanical stuff, especially hearing that they're able to reproduce dead musicians, passed on musicians' work. They're doing it with Kurt Cobain from Nirvana, Amy Winehouse. They're recreating songs that they never would have made, and so we need a little bit more of that authenticity.
You mean with AI?
Yes, yeah. I guess that's what you call it, right? Is that?
Yeah, I would argue that like AI, at least at this point, is just not authentic. Yeah, and I think authenticity is. I mean, it's a big one, and perhaps there is not plenty of it at the moment. I mean, everybody has their own echo chamber. You can devise your own echo chamber, even online, in a way that you have only authentic people that you interact with. It's just that I feel like the biggest acts don't seem to be the most authentic ones. It's not like the biggest rewards go to the most authentic acts out there. So I do think that, yeah. Well, but thanks for saying that I strike you as authentic. That's nice to hear.
It's hey man, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? I think you try to stay true to that, and like you said, I didn't learn theory, and I kept it going, and I think you like to stay true to that. And I'm the same way. I'm a musician, and I keep it real in that way. And I think every time I see that, I'm just like, man, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the authenticity of the artist, the process, loving the process, the doing of, and that's awesome, man. It's awesome. Now, how many bands have you been in, Jasper? How many have you interacted with?
I mean, I've had a couple of live bands for my own project. So people kind of coming and going for my own project. And like I said, I had this electronic side project called Ultrigo, where I had a band where I was playing it live, like in every little shithole in London. I was just performing it with those guys. And while in the Brit School, I also had this for a short while. I had a band there with a couple of guys. So I've been open to work with other people as much as possible. But I've realized that from my personal, my personal feeling tells me to just kind of to dare to go it alone, because doing it alone, I guess it's not always as nice, like especially if I'm playing a solo concert or something, which I do a lot as well. Then you see other bands chilling together or something, and then you're actually alone. But then you are put on the spot. So you can do what you want. So you can actually lock yourself in your dressing room or something, or you can go and socialize. Which is something that like everyone probably has experienced. Is if you go to a place and you're alone, you get challenged, like personally. Whereas if you go with a group, you're safe with that group, and you don't necessarily need anything else than that group. And if you're alone, you're just a bit more, you're forced to be a bit more creative as well, in a sense, in like, how to meet people or how to get a 5 in general.
Absolutely. The more you do things like that, necessity is the mother of all creation. You can't always lean on the group to lead the band. If you're putting it out and people like it, it's you. I think I always forget this, but I think Tame Impala is like one guy. I think it's just one artist with Tame Impala, and
Exactly.
nobody even knew that. And I think he said he didn't even want them to know that because of and it's just one dude.
Yeah, and he even produces it himself. He even, when you're talking about currents, he even mixed that record himself, which
Right.
is like, this is right now where I draw the line. Like I mix my stuff, but then in order to really make it sound good on every single speaker in a car and on your iPhone speakers and stuff, I do like to consult other professionals to just put that cherry on the pie, mastering us, all this stuff. I leave it to like the true professional in a sense. But my mix already, I don't want my mix to change too much when I do this, when I send it off. But I do expect them to solve certain frequency equalizing problems that are in there, and I think it's quite remarkable that he mixed that whole record himself. He just went out on a limb. He just changed his sound, did it all himself, and then released it worldwide, and it was like massive success. So I think it's a very inspiring story, because I also advocate self-sufficiency, and that's what he basically proved. That's what he's like pioneering right now in a way that it wasn't possible before the bedroom studio. You would have had to get a lot of trust from a label in order to produce your own record in a studio and rent all those things that cost so much money, but nowadays it's possible. So, and that's actually going back to the authenticity, isn't it? That like, I think the most authentic product is the one that's perhaps like the least disturbed in the moment of its creation.
Can you say that one again? Can you say that again?
So the most authentic product is the one that's created without any disturbance, in that moment. I think that's authenticity, is not having these A&R guys in the back of the studio thinking, hey, remember the charts and stuff like that. That's not where authenticity comes from. It really comes from like, what do I have to say? What is missing? Where is this still going? Where could it possibly go? Am I doing enough? Like if I have people listening to it, like, don't I want to give them something else by the end of the song? If they're listening anyways, then I might as well be tired rather than lazy, right? Like, and it's that's I think that's where like authenticity then starts rising from.
And you want to stay there. And a lot of people give in, they start to try to keep that, and then they start to dance with what's in pop culture, right? They sort of start to change the genres, and I suppose you have to have a lot of respect for that too, because at the end of the day, you want to go where the noise is being made and where the money's being made. If you want to be an artist too, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of ways to be a self-sufficient artist today. In many ways, I know a lot of people who are doing it in selling merch, all this stuff, but
yeah, it's a true hustle. But don't get me wrong, I love pop music, to be honest. Like, I think it's an art, and it basically is an abbreviation for popular, which is what is in demand, mostly in demand among the population. So, and there's this thing that I guess the charts, they don't do like crazy jumps, compared to like individual artists. They may come with something really unexpected, but there is still an element in pop also with like predictability, which is obviously a big part of pop music, but then doing this slightly unpredictable thing with it, but it's so subtle that it can still infiltrate into the charts like a wolf in sheep's clothing. I have a lot of respect for these guys. When I check out the charts, which I do from time to time, and there is a song in there that I really like, then I have a lot of respect, because how on earth did they like sneak that in? You know what I mean? Because a lot of it is trying to play very safe, in a sense. They're doing something which they think has the highest guarantee of, generating money. I understand that as well, but then again, you're seeing it more as a business, which it also is, but like, then you're basically treating it really as a product, but then you're forgetting about the fact that this product needs to be created from, that's the most important thing. It's like, worry about how you're going to sell it after you created the product. Like, you have to create a very good product first, I think.
Right, and then back to the authenticity thing. As long as you create that image that you want to put out, once you start interacting with consultants and people who are going to market you, it's going to be a lot better to work with something you want to work with versus something you got to carry on for the rest of your career.
Yeah, man. If like, imagine you just write like a song and it becomes super successful, but at the same time you're like, that's really not who I am actually, but it's generating money and stuff. The next step is that they expect you to go and tour it. So then you're on the road playing that song over and over again, and you're reminded to the thing of like, shit, like I wish I would have done it slightly different there or something like that, you know. So more importantly than breaking through is breaking through in the right reason, because otherwise you're going to walk a path that perhaps you feel is inauthentic. And if you're happy with it either way, if you're not super opinionated, then perhaps you can style it out. But I guess I'm too much opinionated, I guess, to really like shake it off or something. I really am always asking myself the question, do I really like this? You know, that for me, that's like the main question, because other people, my dad always used to say, there's as many opinions as there are people. And it's kind
Everyone
of
has
true.
an opinion.
So like, everyone has some people may share the same opinion and stuff, but in the end of the day, it's only your own opinion that counts. Like, honestly, that's the only opinion that should really count for you. It's like self-love. It's that whole thing, you know. And I think people tend to forget that sometimes. I tend to forget that as well a lot of the times, you know.
Hell yeah! And as a musician, as an artist, you're always kind of like, it becomes, there's that stigma, right? It's the wanting of the approval and the love and the appreciation for the confirmation. Yeah. And I think if you can get rid of that and keep the work going, it becomes a lot more fulfilling, even for you as an artist, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a paradox in a way, you know, because you're kind of doing it to get a certain confirmation, to get a certain feedback from the world, you know, but you cannot do it only for that, because then it kind of snowballs out of control into a direction that you don't necessarily want.
People read that stuff, I think. I do. I think people are able to read that when you want it versus like, oh, he's just putting out what he likes, and I dig that. I can work with that. That's awesome, you know, versus like, oh, this is not that great, and he just keeps telling me that if I like it, and I don't want to, you know, there's a lot of that, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Keep it true, keep it going, and if the music sounds bad, whether you need to hear it yourself, you have to be able to look at your work and advance it anyways, you know. Be okay with putting out bad work. Be okay with it not being that great. If it gets not the results you wanted, the music video didn't get what you wanted, you gotta write the next one, get the next one going, you know.
Exactly. It's not really a choice even. Like, I mean, you're really just, if you say I'm an artist and people accept that around you and you're getting some goodwill and some jobs along the way and stuff, then you're in for the ride of an artist, and that comes with, you know, many of these, like, if you're not, like, isn't that a quote, like, if you're not failing from time to time, you're not trying hard enough, you know? Isn't that a quote?
If you're not failing a lot, you got to make failure. How do you approach failure, Jasper? How can I word this? You know, a lot of people are scared to take chances and put out music and you know, have a lot of tracks just sitting on the computer, and you have a lot of that. Do you have a lot of songs you're sitting on you haven't put out, or have you put out a lot of? Yeah, you do.
I do, yeah. I basically just dropped an album because I decided I'm gonna do it differently, and because I think there's just recent things changing with like CD Baby, DistroKid, that you can really kind of distribute your own music, and people don't necessarily care too much, even if you print it physically. So there is almost no investment. Almost the investment is so low, but you still gotta obviously have your own bar. You cannot just put all your music out there and expect someone to listen to it and discover it. You gotta bundle it. You gotta make it like look somewhat sexy or something, but you gotta do it. You know, you cannot just sit around. Like, you gotta plot an escape from your room, because that's all it is for me. Like, I obviously love making music, but the ultimate goal is then to dare to release it, to see it through till the end, and then get invited to, get out of my room, get out of my studio, and just go and
because that's only half
perform
of it, or 30% of it. That's only 30% of it, and people get stuck at that 30%, and you're like, I want the 100%. That's everything. That's the whole package.
Yeah, it is a whole package in a sense. Yeah, so I think it's all about like, well, this is something that I tell myself a lot. Actually, I haven't shared it yet, but like, there is moments, right, where you feel like your music is awesome, right? Like when you're writing it, or even like few weeks after that, you listen to it and you think this is like the best ever, right? It's kind of like delusion, but it's also a moment of like, you could call that a moment of clarity, but then if a few months later you listen back to it in the wrong moment and you don't like it anymore, why do we call that the moment of clarity? You know what I mean? That's the moment of doubt. And the other moment was the moment of certainty, the moment of love. And that is the other one is the moment of fear. So like, which one are you going to choose? Are you going to believe yourself when you're down, and when you're down talking your music, you think, yeah, it is worthless? Or are you going to remember, no, you know what? Actually, a few weeks back, I was dancing to my own tunes and I was feeling great and I couldn't wait to share it. Keep tapping into those neurons, if you know what I mean. Keep tapping into those thoughts, because they are the ones that do actually release the music, not the ones that are doubting. Because doubt, it's handy, but up until a certain point, and then then you just gotta. Sometimes you gotta be stoic, as they say, stoicism.
Absolutely. You have to eliminate negative self-talk so that you can keep producing those dopamine levels that are essential to being an artist that can keep going, because sustainability is the name of the game. You want to last as an artist, not have one hit and then have a lot of that expectation from that hit, and then have the negative self-talk of, you know what, I'm a phony, the one hit is not me. You have to just you just said it perfectly yourself. You gotta keep it going.
You gotta keep it going. So you gotta be your own best friend. Like if you're a solo artist, you gotta treat yourself like you would want a band to treat you. Like you gotta like lift yourself up. And if there's a moment that you're not in liking your music too much, you gotta be patient. You gotta just like ignore it a little bit. You gotta try and just be like positive, because it's the positivity, it's the can-do attitude that actually does it, not the other one. Not to say that like critical thinking is bad. It's healthy, but just up until a certain point, and then you gotta like shut up that voice in your head, because you have like, we all have like opposing, contrasting voices in our head, right? Like they're saying like, you're great, and then no, you're worth nothing in the same hour. Sometimes, some days. That's all normal. But if you gotta listen to one, just listen to the one that's a good bro to you, in a sense. Like you gotta be your own bro, right?
Absolutely. You gotta be. You're stuck with the. I read it somewhere, and it struck me years ago, and I never forgot it. It's like, imagine being stuck with someone in the room for your whole life, and you guys don't get along and you don't agree with each other. You're gonna want to kill them. So people that hate themselves, it's because there's two different things operating. You know what I mean? Stress, the definition of stress is wanting to be in two different places at once. And so once you allow that those two things to not be in a disagreement, you start to get a lot of that stress off your shoulders and stuff. And the art,
interesting,
it can come into fruition.
Yeah. Was it stress is trying to be at two places at once?
The definition of stress is wanting to be literally in two different situations at the same time. So if you're ever stressed at any time, it's because you, for some reason, are in a disagreement where you are at right now. You feel like you should be doing something else, but you want to be 100% invested in anything that you do. That's back to the indecision is worse than the wrong decision. You could be staring at a wall as long as you know you're going to do it for 5 more minutes and then go to the next thing confidently 100%. But if you're always like, here and there, it's 30%. It's 30% everywhere.
Exactly. It's 30%. Like, being 100% in the present surely leads to the best results in general. Like if you're just losing track of time in the studio, that's usually when you're doing nice stuff. That's when you're making miles. Exactly in that moment.
You got to put the miles in.
I was gonna say kilometers, but this is an American interview now, so I'm saying miles.
We have a worldwide audience, so somebody's going to know what we.
Sure.
So people will know. I was listening to David Lee Roth say it. You got to put your 10,000 hours in, and a lot of artists, back to having a little bit of talent, put those hours in, practice every day, and then flex it like a muscle, so that, like you said earlier, you don't have to rebuild that momentum when it's back to the track. The track will come out faster and better. Time is everything, right? I mean, put out your work and then advance as a musician, and then let that track come out. Boom, boom, boom. It becomes like just a nice flow. Just a nice flow.
Yeah, and it can also not happen. And that should also not stop you from doing it again, right? Like, when does something happen from the first time round, I guess it does happen, but it's just rare in a sense, like that's all about like falling down, getting up, dusting yourself up, and keep going. I think that's a very big talent, and but it's also a skill that you have to acquire by falling from time to time, and then you get up, and then you realize it's not such a big deal to fall, because you just get back up again. Something. So it's that just the courage to fail. Also read this great book called the Courage to Be Disliked. I kind of forgot now who's the writer, but it's all about the philosophy of Adolf Adler. He's like a philosopher, contemporary of Freud, and I think Nietzsche. And it's that one. It's courage. It's courage. It's like, and it's like all these things are like skills. Also, like a monk, like meditating all day. It's like a skill. It's like a skill. It's not just like they're not born that way. It's not like, oh, they're just good at sitting still or something. Like, no, it's a skill. It's a skill that should also be respected for what it is, I think.
That's a very good point. That's not an acquired thing, absolutely. And nobody ever stops to think about that. You try to sit for 10 minutes with nothing going on in your thoughts, and you realize, the funny thing is, once you break through that, for anybody that doesn't meditate, everybody should start meditating right now, because once you sort of go through that, and then once you do that for 3 hours, once you're able to sit for 3 hours, holy moly, it's, and that's not for everybody. You don't have to, but there's a lot to say when you're able to get there. And
I cannot say I have sat for like 3 hours yet. Actually, I'm type of meditator that does it when I feel like I need it. So it's not necessarily like I'm not at that point yet. I don't know about
I
you.
haven't done that in years. I did that years ago, just when I was really diving way deep in meditation. I went to a retreat in New York, and I was just,
really?
It was cool, but different place in my life. I feel like I have a lot more balance in many ways, and I'm able to just, once you can control your breathing and things like this, you're sort of meditating all day, right? As long as you're just interacting with the universe and your breathing is fine. It's like an engine, right? You don't want your car to be like this. You just want to keep it good, solid. And then if you got to turn off the engine for a little bit, you do what you have to do. You got to be able to treat your body the way you got to take care of your body and your mind, right? To be the best self, to be the best artist, you got to keep that stuff clean, the mind, diet, all that stuff. Life's not perfect, but if you can, from within, keep it pretty solid and smooth, I think it's just easier to go, dance with life.
Yeah, I think, genius is obsession. It's like, what are you obsessed with? That's isn't that like then the main question? Like, what do you focus on? Like, that's basically the thing that you're gonna get good at in a sense. And we all have some toxic things that we focus on from time to time. I just cannot weigh out the good things like that you do with your focus. Like, you gotta like, the thoughts, the ideas, the memes inside your head that are helpful. You gotta keep rehashing them. Like, literally, the neurons need refreshing. Otherwise, they just fade out. And then what happens to them is what we call forget. But like, they will just not be recalled anymore. Like, you'll forget it. But it's just, you forget it because you don't walk those paths enough. So it's like, that intention of constantly like, and I guess that's why I'm a songwriter, and that's why I write kind of songs, pop music in a sense, because when I start writing, when I have an idea, when I'm getting a vibe, I go to that path in my brain. It's like, how can I tell a nice story, and then how can I structure this in a way that people don't get everything all at once? And then before you know it, you're just writing a song. But it's because I always go to these same pathways where I'm not like, and some days I'll be like, I'm going to make something that doesn't repeat at all, and it's very unpredictable or something. I can do that consciously as well, but that feels like stranger to me. It's like, it's all like the habits that you keep doing. That's what you build upon.
It's all about the journey. It's all the journey. And you want to be able to look back and say, I capitalized on the opportunities that were in front of me, versus letting time go by and saying, man, I missed a lot of those opportunities. Because then you let years go by and you did have something good there, but you spent a lot of time looking back when you needed to look forward. And like you said, keep those habits good, and you write your songs, and you don't really, you're just putting it. That's why you're a songwriter. That's why you write this music. This is all you know how to do. This is what you
exactly.
You know this is what you
exactly.
want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the whole thing, but not a lot of people know what they want. So once you know what you want, then it's a matter of kind of,
no one's
like
gonna
verging on the border of obsession. Yeah, exactly. And no one's gonna like hand it to you as well. Like you gotta make those steps. You gotta convince people that you're worth following or worth copying or whatever it is, or worth tuning into when it comes to a podcast or something, like there's a new, you gotta, there's a click that happens at one point, and then something can become a healthy habit. And those are like the most important ones. Like the healthy habits, they create good stuff in your life. And it's the unhealthy ones that they are like, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. You can finish that. It's the bad habits that make that candle burn out sooner than it needs to, and it's the good ones that keep it lit, keep that fire going.
Yeah, exactly. Like for example, bad habit. There's so many bad habits you can have whilst writing a song as well. For example, that like when it's too difficult, that you give up, or that you for example say, I'm not good at lyrics or something, so you don't write good lyrics because you don't want to spend twice time on it. What I mean? Like if you're not good at lyrics, then you better spend more time on it. Otherwise, you're never gonna become good at lyrics. But if you just accept that, it becomes a bad habit that whenever it gets to writing lyrics, you'll just say anything in a sense, and you're not making a lot of sense, So, and then a good habit that helps with that, which I do, is when I'm thinking or I'm listening to something or I'm watching something and I hear something that sparks my interest, I'll write it down in a book or in my notes or something. So whenever I have to write lyrics and I kind of have a blank moment where I don't know what to do, then I'll just go to my inspiration sheet and then I'll just find something that will, this one, I can do something with this today, I can have some ideas for that. And then I just try that, and that's a good habit that I had to teach myself in a sense, to really also give lyrics the right attention, even though it may not come naturally quicker than the music. The music can just arise out of nowhere very quickly. With lyrics, most of the time, at least in my case, I want them to make some kind of sense. So I can sit still and just think about one sentence for like 10 minutes or something like that. I think I couldn't do that at the start. But now I'm just like, no, there has to be a way to say the perfect thing here that also rhymes. Just the fact that something rhymes doesn't mean it's good. You gotta like, how can you, and then you finally got something, you think, yeah, but it doesn't, it's not phonetically, it doesn't sing well. Then keep juggling around synonyms and stuff until it really does, in a sense. And then every time you play it live, you're like thanking yourself for taking that 10 minutes extra, because from then onwards, it's just part of the thing that you're performing.
You cultivated the substance that song needed. Every song needs that substance that you're talking about, that extra attention, and that just comes to show how developed you are as a musician. It's not just like a sound and a word. It's like the song needs substance. It has to make sense. And
exactly. Well, it has to make sense to you. It has to make sense to you, in a sense. Like, it doesn't have to make sense to everyone. It just has to make sense to you. you have to say like, yeah, this is the best it can possibly be right now, and then only then dare to move on, in a sense, because it's so easy to try and be quick in that process, because it's not the funnest or the quickest process. It's not the process full of dopamine. It's not like when you're writing the music that is dopamine. It's
life.
It's different.
That's life. Life's not always going to have dopamine producing effects, and it's those times when there's less of that, and you are able to create that, especially with your songwriting. It all, that's where it all becomes very real, very fast.
It's just not instant gratification, because it is gratifying, very gratifying. And then you write the lyrics. You have to still record them as well. Don't be lazy when you're recording vocals, right? Don't just do a take and auto-tune it. Do many takes and comp your best take. So you don't even need auto-tune in a sense. So you just do it to fine-tune a little bit. It's all these extra things that you could do, which then, once that momentum is past, that all you have to do is just enjoy the fruits of your labor. That's all you have to do. And then you get these waves of joy, these waves of pride. Right? And that's what you do.
Joy and pride.
Yeah, but it's delayed. It's delayed. It's not like social media where it's instant. It's not this instant dopamine. It's probably serotonin or something. It's probably something else than dopamine. Dopamine is pretty instant, and it's something else. But it's, I would say, even more rewarding in a sense. It's like planting a seed. Seeing it years later, you almost forget about it, and then you get back to it and you see that it's becoming a nice tree or something, and you're like, wow. You are on the money, Jasper. That's it. That is it. Plant that seed, people. Planting seeds.
You gotta plant it. Delayed gratification and enjoying the fruits of your labor. You feel so much more rewarded than social media. A lot of people will play like a riff or something and then shoot to social media. They'll play the riff for 10 minutes and then they'll be on social media talking about it when they could have been developing that into a track for those hours. You don't want that short-term gratification. That stuff is good when you need it. I guess there's some, they're saying there's something to it. I think it's like mindless entertainment, right? Whenever you feel like you need that, but
you switch off for a bit. Yeah, exactly. It's like Pavlov's dog, right? When he hears the bell, when he gets a notification that when he gets the food. The day that there's the bell and there's no food, he still starts making the saliva in his mouth, and he's still like, where's my food? And then even though it doesn't arrive, he just has this expectation of it arriving right in that moment, so his body starts hyping up for that. But I guess what we don't think about in the experiment is that the dog, before the bell goes off, the dog is hungry. The dog is somewhat miserable or something, and then when the bell goes off, it gets this little spike of joy, and it may just be completely fake. It may be a fake sense of joy, like when you get a notification and it's some distant like friend from years ago whose birthday it is or something. You're like, fuck, I thought it was like a comment for me or something like that. I thought it was someone who's gonna express love to me or something like that. So
Absolutely. All right, Jasper. Well, how can our audience find you on social media?
Just like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I have TikTok now as well, even though I don't understand it yet, how it works. Just my name, Jasper Erkens, Erkens. And people can find me there. Yeah. Thank you very much, Troy. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.